Okay, the next economic indicator that we are going to look at, or that your teacher says you're going to look at, is the concept of unemployment. And then there are 4 types of unemployment that we are going to look at, and you can categorize unemployment based on some of the factors surrounding it. So the first one here is cyclical unemployment. The next one is structural unemployment. The third one is seasonal unemployment. I couldn't find an article specifically about that, but seasonal unemployment. And then the last one is frictional unemployment. So like a lot of business terms, they are extremely obvious things. So cyclical unemployment, if we think about just the words in that term, cyclical meaning goes in a cycle, so happens over and over again on the same, kind of same time of year, every year, etc. So cyclical unemployment is a factor of overall unemployment that relates to cyclical trends in growth and production. So consumer demand for a product or service declines, there can be a corresponding reduction in supply production. So basically, if the demand for a product goes down, then we know that the supply is going to decrease in order to create a new equilibrium. Now, if we are creating a new equilibrium by decreasing our production, that also means that people are going to lose their jobs because the workers who are no longer needed will be released by the company. And released is a politically correct way of saying fired or laid off. So basically, cyclical unemployment is something that it can be tied directly to cyclical economic trends in growth and decline. They give an example cause of cyclical unemployment during the financial crisis of 2008. You had a housing bubble that burst. So as the bubble continued to burst, you had borrowers failing to meet the debt obligations associated with their homes. You had people that were in homes that they could no way afford and should never have been given a mortgage for in the first place. And so loans became harder to get and construction declined. So people that were in the construction development business in 2008, 2009 really took a hit as a result of the lack of demand for new housing because you couldn't get a mortgage. It was too difficult. Okay, so we talked about cyclical. We'll go ahead and scroll down and look at cyclical versus seasonal because there's a difference. Cyclical is attributed to a business cycle of economy. Seasonal unemployment occurs as demand shift from one season to the next. So a business cycle of an economy is not necessarily linked to any specific period of time. It's just a description of the ebb and flow that the economy goes through. So, you're going to have low numbers of unemployment, and then you're going to have high numbers of unemployment, and that's how it goes. Whereas seasonal, when you're looking at, okay, let's look at ski resorts, where you've got all these people who work at a ski resort in the wintertime that become unemployed during the summer and the spring because there's just not any work for them to do. But they know that that they will be able to gain employment once the season has come back around. Certain retail stores hire seasonal workers during the holiday season to better manage increased sales, but release those workers during the post-holiday demand shift. That is extremely common in large stores for them to bring in basically part-time employees that are brought in specifically to help with the change in demand or the increase in demand during particular seasons. So during, the springtime and the summer, Home Depot in the garden department needs more people to load and unload mulch. So that's an example of a seasonal unemployment, but you're going to go through a lull where you don't need people in home and garden because people aren't buying stuff like that. So they let those people go and they hold on to their core team of workers. All right, the next type of unemployment is structural unemployment. And the difference between structural and cyclical is that structural is typically longer lasting. So cyclical implies that it is a part of some condition that is forecasted to be temporary, forecasted to change. Whereas structural unemployment is unemployment caused by fundamental shifts in the economy and then exacerbated, made worse by extraneous factors such as technology, competition, and government policy. So basically what they're saying is that if you change the way an industry runs, from the bottom up, then you're going to have a change in the way that people are employed. They also mention that jobs are available, but there's a mismatch between what the companies need and what the workers can offer. One example of that is nurses. They never have enough nurses because they don't get paid enough. Same with teachers. They never have enough teachers. So you end up with this need for the employees and then a influx of people who are not really the appropriate candidate for that job. So they also bring up the example of well-paying manufacturing jobs being lost in the United States over the past 3 decades because the costs for producing in the United States have increased while the costs for producing in China and other third world countries have decreased. So the large companies that at one point made a lot of their stuff in the United States have now outsourced to countries where the cost of living is lower and they can get away with paying their employees a much lower wage than what they would have to pay an American in the United States to do the same job. Okay. They bring up another example. They mention again that 2007 to 2009 global recession caused cyclical unemployment, meaning again that the unemployment numbers grew, but there was an expectation that they were going to fall again, that this status of unemployment of a large number of people was temporary. Okay. So we've already looked at what the difference between cyclical and seasonal is, but we can look at a more specific article on that difference. Cyclical occurs when the GDP falls and the economy enters a phase of contraction. So again, contraction meaning that there's an expectation that it's going to expand again. Again, the big word here is expect or expectation, that they lose their jobs in a downturn, but they know that given enough time, there will be more jobs. Whereas, with structural employment, how we talked about that, it isn't a result of a cycle and it is a longer lasting form of unemployment. So when you're starting to see these production jobs and manufacturing jobs being outsourced to cheaper countries, that appears as a fundamental shift in the way that those businesses are producing their product. So there's not an expectation that those businesses are going to bring those jobs back to the United States. So therefore, it is a structural unemployment issue because the structure of it has changed. Okay, we'll look at frictional unemployment is the last one. It is always present, so that's important to note that this is the kind of unemployment that we're talking about that's just unavoidable. And it is resulting from temporary transitions made by workers and employers or from workers and employers having inconsistent or incomplete information. So first-time job seeker may lack the resources or efficiency for finding the company that has the job that is available and suitable for him, and as a result does not take other work, temporarily holding out for a better paying job. So this is an example of frictional unemployment because the person had the opportunity technically to gain employment, but it wasn't the right match for him. There was too much friction between the candidate and the company. And what most people don't realize, and I certainly did not realize this when I was your age, is that when you're looking for a job, you as the candidate are interviewing your potential employer just as much as they are interviewing you, because it is likely that you are interviewing with multiple companies and that you're going to have multiple job offers. So you want to make sure that you end up with a company that is most suited to you, which will make for the best career moves, and it'll ensure that you're going to stay with a company for longer. And anytime you stay with a company for longer, typically you're going to have an opportunity to work your way up in that company. It is frowned upon typically when you've got somebody who has spent a very short amount of time at a lot of different jobs, because what that tells an employer is that the friction for this potential candidate is going to be too high, and there's a potential that they're not going to take the job, or there's a potential that they're not going to be able to do the job. So again, this is the biggest part of this is matching prospective job seekers with job openings of interest. So again, it's not that there's a lack of jobs, and it's not that there's a lack of employees. It's that there is some sort of mismatch that is happening that is making it difficult for the right people to find their way into the right jobs. They have taken advantage of the internet greatly to use social media and job posting websites, which they can do a better job of kind of laying out to a potential candidate who they're looking for, what kind of business they are. The candidate can do more research on the internet than they could before information was widely available. And so this reduces the frictional unemployment level, because the employees and the employers are able to be more appropriately matched with each other, simply through an increase in communication resources. That's what social media and job posting websites. Though I should point out, as a little life lesson for adults, that though job posting on websites has become extremely common, it is still far more likely that you will get employment through networking and knowing people than you will through applying online. There's a low likelihood that you're even going to hear back from those people. So friction can occur also as job seekers retain their current employment while seeking new employment. And there's nothing that you can do about that, because there's obviously going to be friction between that employee and the company that they are leaving, because they're actively searching for another place to work while they're still working in their job. So a lot of times you will hear about people not wanting their employer to know and not telling their employer too soon that they are looking for another job. And a lot of that comes down to, how has the company treated you? How has your managers treated you? Because giving more notice, giving a month's notice that you're going to be leaving, giving, 2 weeks notice, which is considered the minimum amount of time that you're supposed to give notification to your employer. What it does is it gives your employer an opportunity to replace you, so that there can be as little of a gap in your job as possible. Now, like I said, if your company's not treating you well, this can greatly affect your decision on what amount of time is appropriate to give your company, because it is extremely common in the automotive industry, what Mark does doing service writing, that if you tell your employer that you're looking for a new job, they will tell you to leave right then and there, and they will just fire you. So that's why you have to be careful about when you tell your employer that you are looking for another job, or that you have already found another job but it's not starting. So those are the different types of unemployment. And next we're going to look at the assignment associated with different types of unemployment.